self-diagnosed. I think self-diagnosis is the absolute first step. I feel like a medical diagnosis is important if you want to get medicated. And I think it can be very validating for a lot of people to have a medical diagnosis. However, I think that self-awareness and a self-diagnosis is plenty valid to get started on your ADHD journey. And so when I talk about holistic health with my clients, I'm really, I say this a lot on my podcast. I believe that like 50% of ADHD treatment, for lack of a better word, is to just understand what is happening. We are learners, we are researchers, we are puzzle solvers. So usually when we become diagnosed or self-diagnosed with ADHD, we fall down like the research rabbit holes and we hyperfocus on ADHD. You join a million Facebook groups, you follow all these accounts, you're on TikTok and your For You page is nothing but ADHD, and you just become obsessed with learning everything you can about what this is. And that is kind of that where was it? My point was that like the treatment of this ADHD is understanding how your brain works, what things are, what is RSD, what is, how does time blindness manifest itself? What is this paralysis that I keep feeling? So while I think medication is an important way to treat ADHD, and I think it's, a very successful way for a lot of people, I feel like there's oftentimes people will go get a diagnosis at a doctor's office and the doctor will give them a prescription for a pill and send them on their way. And they leave them under this false belief that simply taking a pill every day is going to quote unquote cure their ADHD. And I think you're in for a world of hurt if you think that that's all there is to it. So this is really about kind of understanding who you are and how your brain works, and then being able to kind of develop a sense of intuition and a sense of self-trust, which is something that we have not generally had. I mean, you think about it, we have grown up without self-trust, and we have grown up most of the time, we grow up being told by our parents, by our teachers, by many people in our life that the way we do things is wrong. And the way we naturally have an inclination to be is wrong. We are too much. We are too, too chaotic or too hyperactive, And so we have a tendency to have a lot of self-doubt. So, and I think it's also why we have a tendency to kind of follow things. We have a tendency to like fall for traps. Like, for me with binge eating, a lot of my binge eating came from obsessive dieting, right? And that belief that like this diet is going to turn my life around and it's going to make me a better person and everything's going to work and I'm finally going to be that wonderful person I've always wanted to be. And so I think we look for those quick fixes, and there's a lot of ADHD happening there when you're looking for quick fixes. Like, we are impulsive and impatient and we want things to happen yesterday. So, with the holistic health, I think it's a matter of kind of understanding who you are and what you are, how you operate in certain elements of your life, and then empowering yourself to, realize that the way you are doing things is absolutely correct, that you are not the problem. The system has failed you, and that system could be the diets or your job or the classroom where you were expected to sit still for 9 hours at a time. Like, all of these ways in which we are kind of square pegs jammed into holes, and have grown up always feeling like we are the problem and we are wrong. I think just shifting that paradigm and understanding that there's nothing wrong with us, we just don't have the accommodations we need. So what are those accommodations, and how can we make lifestyle adjustments that will best serve our brains so that we can lean into the gifts that come with ADHD? And I'm done for now.
I love it. I love that you said the gifts of ADHD, and that's That's true, because we do have so many gifts, even with, with the good, there's the bad. And I think that that's true for anyone, whether if they're neurodiverse or if they're not, like there is good and there's bad. And there's also gifts. There's a lot of gifts with ADHD that are, are highly creative. We are willing to take risks. There's a lot of just amazing, incredible individuals out there who are changing the world that are, identify as ADHD. So, yeah, I love that process. And also, if anyone has questions, I would love for you to raise your hand and we will call you up if you have any questions for Katy. I'm also wondering too, with your, what was I going to say? Oh, where can people find your podcast at?
Yeah, the podcast is called Women in ADHD, and it's on pretty much any podcast platform you can imagine, or you can get directed to those podcast platforms from the main website, which is womenandadhd.com, and you can find out more about my one-on-one coaching there as well at womenandadhd.com/coaching.
Awesome. And I was just reading your bio. I was like, oh, you're sober. That's awesome. Sober sister. Sounds like we have very similar backgrounds for sure. And you're in New York, which keeps coming up for me. Oh, we got some questions popping up. Hello, Barry. How are you today? What's your question, my love?
I'm good. Thank you for hosting the room, and Katie, it was great to hear your story. And thank you for saying that self-diagnosis is important. I self-diagnosed long before I got a doctor's diagnosis, and if I'd have only gotten the doctor's diagnosis, I think I'd be in denial about my ADHD because he seemed sketchy to me. He kept trying to say I was bipolar and maybe I was bipolar, despite the fact that I lost my purse at the visit when he was going to diagnose me. But yeah, I had long since done a self-diagnosis. Um, so, and I definitely agree with your perspective around holistic health and how it can help you with ADHD. I decided recently to do something about the fact that I was insulin resistant, and I've been insulin sensitive. I took my fasting insulin from 35 to 8 for the past year and got rid of a lot of brain fog and inflammation through diet and getting organized around my eating and food. And I too was a compulsive eater for a long time. And it helped my ADHD a lot. And I hear, when you hear things about type 3 diabetes and Alzheimer's and insulin resistance in the brain, um, it motivates you to really get things together. But I'm just wondering what you think or what you do nutritionally in your approach to taking care of yourself. So I guess that's my question.
Yeah, awesome. It's funny. I think just to touch back on the part about diagnosis, where it's such this like mental health revolution, I think right now with ADHD, which like the irony of going to a doctor is that so many doctors misunderstand what ADHD even is, right? And so here we are going for a diagnosis, and it's like a lottery. You never know if you're going to get a doctor who sort of really, really understands and gets what is happening, or you're going to get somebody who's completely going to dismiss you and say, no, it's just depression or it's just anxiety, and they aren't willing to kind of look at what else is going on there. And so, like I hear time and time again, so many women who have gone to their doctors and have been sort of sent away, and we who are doing this research into ourselves know more about ADHD in adult women than our medical professionals and the physicians. And I think, slowly, hopefully, we are changing the face of ADHD, and I'm hoping that more medical providers are going to start understanding what this looks like, and how damaging it is to a person's psyche and self-esteem when they have ADHD, to then be told by a medical provider, no, it's all in your head, just, you're just lazy, or you're just depressed, or all these things that we have been telling ourselves our whole life. And then, Summer, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. So I actually was talking to my husband about this because he went to med school, and something that we talked about extensively is the fact that that training isn't really a part of some of the like education that they receive. So we were discussing like the need to teach, because I think when you don't have an understanding, you can't know what like how to do that. So one thing that I always make sure of, number one, is that I do go to a psychiatrist, or a doctor that knows something about ADHD, because that's becoming more and more common, especially in the psychiatric world, that there are ones that specifically deal with kids and ADHD. So there are those out there who understand. So I made sure, like, that I took my son to a doctor, and I was like, nope, nope. I don't agree. And if you don't agree, just make sure that you're self-advocating, and that you're moving forward with that. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in, is that, we do need to advocate for ourselves, and we do need to educate. And if we're not comfortable, we really do need to follow our intuition, and follow our thoughts on it, and move on to something that, suits us better.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think it's so important for us to build that intuition and the sense of self-trust in so many elements of our life over the grand scale, because it really, really helps us when we go into a doctor's office to be like, no, I am the expert of what is happening with me. And yeah, so then in answer to the second part of your question, Barry, when it comes to nutrition and activity and healthy lifestyle changes and adjustments that have to do with ADHD, I personally really encourage a non-diet intuitive eating approach, and a health at every size approach to nutrition. I personally went on every diet you can imagine from when I started at age 14 on Slim Fast, and went from there. I was a chronic yo-yo dieter, obsessed over my weight gain and my weight loss, and really struggled with my self-image as a result. And this is what my book is about. It was about becoming a Weight Watchers leader and developing a binge eating disorder because of the incredible restrictive eating of Weight Watchers, and really kind of understanding why our bodies, why people who are chronic dieters tend to gain weight, why dieting is the number one predictor of weight gain.
Hello,
And
Carolina,
what it
do you have a
does.
question?
Oh,
Oh, are you there, Carolina?
did I get cut off?
I think
Hi, yes,
we
I'm
didn't hear
here.
you.
Oh,
We
is
Oh,
she
didn't.
still
I don't know.
talking?
But
I'm
I
sorry.
think
If you
Katie
guys
was.
are still
Katie
talking, we
didn't
couldn't hear you.
finish.
yeah,
I'm
sorry.
so sorry.
I didn't know if my mic cut off or something because I got
Oh,
interrupted. So anyway, what I like to follow is a non-diet approach, because I feel like diets in general are really, really sort of predatory when it comes to the ADHD brain. And so I think you kind of hit the nail on the head when you were talking about motivation, because we are interest-driven brains, and there are ways in which we can become nutritionally motivated when we understand what it's doing for us. So, for example, exercise. When you exercise for weight loss, it becomes really, really boring, and you have a tendency to not want to do it anymore. But when you are exercising because you know it feeds your brain and it improves the rest of your day, if you go out for a 30-minute walk in the morning, and your ADHD brain really, really feeds off of that, it becomes much easier to do those things. So it's, again, tapping into kind of what motivates you in terms of activity and nutrition. as well. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah,
I'm done.
it does. And you, I think the why, understanding the why is like an ADHD trait, because I'm a person that needs to understand what's behind something, or why something is happening, or it's not even a real thing for me. And my favorite form of exercise is swing dancing. I have no problem doing that, but forget about me going to the gym. It's Barry done speaking.
Yeah, absolutely. The gym is in a very, very boring place for the vast majority of us. So yeah, find something you love that stimulates you, because we do not tolerate boredom very well. I'm done speaking.
I like that you spoke to the boredom part, because honestly, unless and for some people this works and some people it doesn't, but I actually don't enjoy working out with people. I don't know where that comes from. I almost feel like embarrassed, like I don't like to be around people if I don't like to be told to like I almost don't like the encouragement, like, yeah, you got this, hurry up. It makes me like super irritable. So I think like what you said, like it's important, like if you're bored and that's not something that works for you, that you find something that does work for you. I work out to YouTube videos. Like I have a girl that I follow, Carolyn Gervin. I just follow her and I do her stuff every day in her program, and I do it like literally in my bedroom in front of my bed, and I have my weights in my closet. So I think you just have to do, what really is working for you, and like you're saying, like be be cognizant of that. Like what is it that is going to help you, what is going to work for you, and don't push against that. Don't try and go with the norm like you were saying earlier. Don't do something just because somebody else or the rest of the world is doing it that way. We think that what we do isn't right, but the only reason we think that is because the social norms that exist in the world aren't for neurodivergent people. So I think that's a great point that you spoke to. And I am done speaking. Val, do you have any thoughts on that? If you are around, if
Yes,
not,
I
oh,
want to
there you are.
I just
Okay.
want to say acknowledge that, oh my gosh, for some reason I think my end just went dead. So I was like, it's quiet. What happened? So I'm so sorry I cut you off. That was so incredibly rude and so ADHD of me. I did not hear, for some reason it just went dead. But yeah, I'm loving this conversation. I'm loving, the questions we're getting and all of the feedback, because it is such a crazy time to be in the ADHD space with all of the, just information and research and things that are coming out. Whereas, like Summer said before, that they didn't have that. They don't get training. Doctors do not get training. People don't get training specific with ADHD unless if they seek that or they are very specifically like specialized in that. So it is so important to have someone who understands that, because our brains, the way we do things, I was just talking to someone earlier about this. He was saying like, yeah, but I had this person in my life that would tell me to just go do it, just do it. And I'm like, oh yeah, that really works with ADHD. No, it doesn't. Like we can't just be told just go do it, or just, just manage your health, just do this, just eat this way. Because for one, we're going to rebel and not want to do it. And two, like we don't always just follow a strategy or follow a simple thing. It has to work for us. So I am a huge lover of any type of ADHD advocacy, and working with people who are familiar with that ADHD realm as well.
Yeah, and like Summer said too, if something isn't working for you, I think our default tends to be like, the default tends to be like, oh, what's wrong with me? This is working for everybody else. There's something wrong with me, as opposed to saying, what? I'm not a person who likes to go to YouTube to watch YouTube videos for exercise. I like going to the gym because the gym is a place where I feel accountable and it gets me out of the house, and it's a place to go that I know I can schedule. So it's really like leaning into what works for you and trusting that, and not feeling like if something's not working that it's because you are the problem. You need to keep looking for what does work for you.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I love that. And we don't like to be told Oh, for heaven's sakes, that's why I can't work out with people because when they're like, hurry up, come on, catch up. Like I used to run with some of my friends. I'd be like, screw you, I don't care. And it's the stubborn person in me, so it's not always very inspiring. And I don't know what it is, but like honestly, that doesn't work for me. So what does work for me? That's what I try and look at. Whatever works for me is like what I'm going to do. I've kind of shed off that idea that I have to work like everybody else because I already know that I don't. So I love this conversation, Katie, and I'm super glad that you're here. So we have another question, Felissa, or no, Carolina. Let's go to you. Sorry, Felissa. I think we did you ask your question yet, Carolina?
I have not. I just I wanted
Okay, go
to tell
ahead.
Katie how helpful her I follow her on Instagram and that's how I found her podcast. I'm at the very like pre-beginning of the journey. I started investigating because of some behaviors that my two girls have. And then I realized very quickly that I do a lot of things too. And so I actually have an appointment tomorrow for my diagnosis. And my
Yay.
kids are in a couple of weeks, so
Congratulations. That's so nice. So nice. I
yeah, and
love it.
like I identify with a lot of the things that you guys are saying, or just like how we do things a certain way and just think that we're, failing at being a typical adult.
Well, a lot of that comes from being socialized that way and being told that as women, we are supposed to act a certain way and we're supposed to be domestic goddesses and we're supposed to love doing the dishes and folding the laundry and we're supposed to love our children all the time. And, all of these things that when we get into the reality of it, we're like, oh my God, this is terrible. Why didn't anybody tell me how boring and awful this is? And then we feel bad about ourselves because I think that's what's so interesting about thinking about the female experience is how much of this is what we've been socialized to believe we should be as women. And again, what I was saying, when you grow up with so much self-doubt and lack of self-trust because you are told that the way you do things is wrong, it's it's no wonder we all have such self-esteem issues. So yeah, I'm done speaking. I recognized your profile picture. It's so nice to see you here, Carolina. Thank you.
Well, and I really think part of that goes back to like speaking to like do we know ourselves and what we love and are we I don't maybe too influenced by like the social norms and have we been socialized that way and it really is there are a lot of women who do enjoy staying home. I don't know if they enjoy doing the dishes, but they enjoy like doing domestic things like I did for a while, but girls, I am over that crap. My husband does a lot more now, and so I
That's
know that
very
there was
funny, Summer.
yeah, I know I used to. What'd you say, Carolina? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say it's just, for me, I've found I've had a lot of like behaviors that I thought were just like, oh, this is just the way I am, and this is, I just like I became an entrepreneur when I was very, very young. I was
Mhm.
16, and then, but where I'm from Mexico, and they don't take you seriously without a degree. So I actually like I went to college just to get that piece of paper, and I'm a graphic designer, and my idea is that I never wanted to be in a cubicle, I knew that from a
Mhm.
very young age, and I just thought, that's the way I am, but it's partially because of the ADHD.
Oh yeah. I mean, it can be a superpower in so many ways. And I've watched my own life evolve. My kids aren't little anymore, so but I did. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I hated cleaning, but I hated the idea that I had to do everything. Like I didn't have to. I chose to do all of the things, but the ADHD is really what was not allowing me to do that. That's how I started to, interestingly, Katie. So that's how I started to revisit my ADHD diagnosis from when I was younger. Is that I would go to my psychiatrist because I have anxiety really bad, and I would, like, he was looking over my notes. I mean, it took him like 4 years, for heaven's sakes, but he was looking over like the notes in his files, and he's like, you say a lot, like I feel like I'm walking in circles all day long. And that's the frustrating part, is like, even though I wanted to stay at home, I want to keep a nice house, like I enjoy that. I didn't realize that there were so many things that were hindering my love, that were keeping me back from being my best self in that. And then as my kids got older, like I realized, that isn't something that I'm really interested anymore in. My husband is totally fine with that. And now that my kids are older too. And that's the awesome thing about ADHD, is we have that ability to transfer. Is that the right word? No. Not transfer, whatever, going into like a new phase, a different thing. Like we can, have that exchange, because we like to do lots of different things, right? We like to learn new things, and it's a different time and place in your life. So yeah, I love that all of that kind of came from that, because I love the idea that we can, grow and learn and change, and we all have the things that we love, and that, our ADHD is like superpower for us, that allow us to, go through that. So yes, sorry, that was a very long tangent. Felissa, what's up, my friend?
Yo, yo! Hi,
Yo,
Summer and
yo. Well,
Val. And Katie, I'm so happy to finally, I should say, it's interesting to say meet you, but talk to you in person. I follow you. I feel like we have some kind of connection, so we can talk about that offline if you want, and if you think that I'm someone you want to speak to. Anyway, with that being said, I realized about, gosh, almost 8 years ago that I was a diet addict. And I looked, after I really figured out how to change my health, my wellness, and most of all, my mindset, and realized that I wanted to kind of pivot. And by the reason that I wanted to pivot is I realized that something had worked for me, finally, where I had kept, I enjoyed eating. I hated being deprived and restricted. And that's what everything that I had done my entire life. My mom was also a diet addict, and I watched her go from size 8 to 18 and 18 to 8 my entire life. I thought that's what we needed to do as women. If we want to look good and feel good, it is about a diet. So changed my life. I don't need to tell my whole story, but when that happened, I said, you know what, there are so many other women that I'm coaching that just want to lose weight. And I'm realizing that there's a reason that all of a sudden this has worked for me. It's been 8 years that I've kept off 40 pounds. And I've pivoted to coaching women that have busy minded, which I call either ADHD diagnosed or undiagnosed. And the reason that I have felt the pivot was so strong and literally calling me to do this was because I finally realized what it was. It wasn't the diet that wasn't working. It wasn't the food that I was eating that was making me heavy, or yes, I lost weight and I got to a number on a scale, but it wasn't sustainable for life. Why? Because my brain works differently. It was about how I thought about it, how I broke it down, how I made it work for me and my lifestyle, and why I had to stop thinking like a typical brain, neurotypical person. That's why it was failing me. It was the culture, the diet culture, which Katie, you speak about a lot. And it was about the restriction and the deprivation. And if we know anything about our brains, we get bored easily. And when we are deprived and restricted from anything, especially when you're talking to a foodie, I do not cook. I do not go grocery shopping. Summer and I talk about this all the time. My husband does all the grocery shopping, all the cooking. I literally do not even make a sandwich. If I cannot grab and eat it, if I cannot find healthy, grab and eat it and go. I like to walk around and eat. The only time I sit down is dinner, and I still eat so healthy during the day, 3 to 5 times, and that's not including my large dinner. I have found that it's about thinking differently in order to be successful for life. And this is Felissa, and I'm done speaking. Actually, I'm never done speaking, but I'm
I was gonna say, where's your like tagline, girl?
Sorry, I had to get all that out there, and I didn't want to take over the room. But I feel like I can relate so much to Katie, and can't wait to read her book, or listen, or whatever I can do, because it's hard. It's my jam. Health, wellness, and ADHD. That's my jam.
Yes, girl is on fire.
This
Yeah.
girl is on fire. Okay, we're done. We got to get a little singing out every now and again.
Love it. I
Well,
love
I
it. It's
love
what
what you
makes it.
said. I love what you said, Felissa, about deprivation too, because I think there's something that has been so important in my own eating journey and, my own diet history, which was, deprivation comes in so many different forms and not just like caloric deprivation, right? So, like, I think about, like, I remember when I was, developing this full-blown binge eating disorder, and I thought, well, okay, if it's calorie, and I remember reading that it was caloric deprivation was causing me to binge eat. So I was like, okay, I've got the answer. I'm not going to, restrict my calories, but I'm only going to eat certain foods. And that's going to be this is going to solve all my problems, and I'm going to lose weight, and I'm going to be amazing, and everything's going to be happy. And I realized that, like, the deprivation wasn't coming in terms of caloric deprivation. The deprivation was like a deprivation of myself, right? Like, it was a
100%.
sense of self-denial. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that
It was the way
idea
we
that,
thought we were
like,
supposed to think. We were supposed to
right,
think about
this,
keeping things out of our body and not eating it, or even just, what we should look at and what we should read and how we should weigh or count calories or count fat grams, or it just was a different way. It was just, I agree with you. I'm the Weight Watchers. How many times do I go before somebody says, who's the idiot?
yeah, and I found there's so many parallels. I mean, this could be a whole other topic, but, like, there's so many parallels between Weight Watchers and ADHD, because I think about, like, this idea. Like, I would have people come when I was a Weight Watchers leader. I would have people come over and over and over, and they would say, like, Weight Watchers is the only program that ever worked for me. And I'd say, well, obviously it's not working for you. Like,
That's
you're coming back for the
That's
12th
my
time.
line.
It's
I
not
say to
working.
my clients, that's it. If you're going back to anything, if you're going back to Weight Watchers, if you're going back to anything, it didn't work the first time.
Right. Yeah. But there's this sense that, like, that, it's not for lack of trying. The people who are failing the hardest at health and nutrition are often the people who are trying the hardest. And that irony sort of really, like, hits me when you think about ADHD and how many times we've been told, like, it feels like everybody has this whole thing figured out but me. And how many times it's like, I am trying so hard to do the thing, and it's just not working for me. So again, it's like this idea that I think we have to really shift our focus away from where we are depriving ourselves as humans and as human beings, and think, to lose that sense that, one thing, if we pick up this new fad, if we pick up this new habit, if we pick up this new diet, that somehow our life is going to be wonderful. And this assumption that, like, if we change who we are, that's going to be the answer to everything. And really kind of leaning into, I have, like they said to Dorothy, like, it was in you all along.
Right.
The
It's
strength was in
just,
you all along.
yeah, let's just shift. I say, let's flip the script, like completely flip the script.
Yeah, sorry, I was drinking water. Yeah, no, I totally agree. But yeah, I'm done. I'm done. Do we want to move on to Andrea? Or did Val, Summer, did
Yeah.
either of you want to
Yes.
chime?
Sorry. Yeah, I think my thing keeps going in and out too. So it's a great day. Yeah. Hi, Andrea. Welcome. How you doing? Are you with us? Maybe we'll come back to you if you're not available.
Sorry, I'm
Are you available?
trying. I
You're
couldn't.
good.
I couldn't unmute, and I'm struggling with getting an earring in, and it's just.
You're multitasking. No worries.
I am, and I'm getting ready to go out, but I've been listening to this conversation, and some of it really hits home, and some of it I don't really relate to all that much. I haven't really struggled with eating much. I a little, but I've never done dieting or anything like that. What I struggle with is repetitive exercise. Anything where I have to count. It's 1, 2, 3, squirrel, wait, how many? Oh, hell with it, I'm done. I can walk. That's the one exercise I've been able to do, although recently I hurt my back and that slowed it down. But walking I can do because you walk to a place and then you walk back. And that I can keep track of. And, I can think and I can talk to people and I can read books and or listen to books or all kinds of stuff. But other than that, I find it really hard to exercise. And I'm going in to start doing some physical therapy to get my back better, to strengthen my core muscles. And I gotta figure it out because otherwise I'm gonna need surgery. So I gotta figure out some kind of exercise routine that doesn't force me to count, that doesn't drive my ADHD nuts. Any suggestions? I'm done.
Yeah, it's funny that you said, other than walking, I'm not exercising, because walking to me is a fantastic exercise. So I feel like it's, seems to me like this is a very ADHD trait, which is I'm not doing it, I'm not doing it enough. I need to be doing this 110%. I need to fix this. And here you are also talking about the fact that you've got, an injury that you're dealing with, but you're not allowing yourself to rest because you feel like you have to figure this out. And I feel like that's something that we could all relate to, right? This idea that like, I have to be the absolute best at anything I do. And it's often why we get injured a lot of the times that, like I used to run and I kept getting injuries from running because I would push myself. Like if I got a certain time yesterday, I had to beat that time today. And and I never had time to stretch and I never had time to do the boring stuff, and so I was getting injured all the time. So now I walk, and like you said, like I listen to books and I listen to podcasts, or I talk to my partner, and it's all the fun stuff. And so I don't really think of it as it's easy to sort of dismiss it as not being enough, but I think it is a great form of exercise. If you're not feeling like you are physically pushing yourself and you're not physically spent, that's another thing. But it sounds to me like you're just sort of, like a lot of this is a sense of guilt, like you should be doing more, which is a very ADHD quality, but also you're injured. So I think you're dealing with like the need to find something that is going to help you heal as well. That's kind of what I'm hearing here. Um, is the walking exacerbating the bad back? Like, are you looking for something to do that will be restorative?
Well, the walking hadn't done anything, but then I think I pushed it one day, like you said, and I went almost 3 hours in walking. And by the time I got home, I was really hurting. I have a fusion that happened 14 years ago. And they told me that 10 to 15 years afterwards, there might be problems start to arise. So it's sort of built into to where I'm at with my body right now. What I'm worried about, what I'm concerned about is when I go to the physical therapist, they're going to say, okay, you need to do this exercise every morning. You need to do 10 reps of da-da-da and 10 da-da-da and da-da-da. And I can't do that. Those I can't. So I don't, and I'm not sure how to communicate with them that, or how to find some way to integrate that into, I don't know, timing train. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I think that goes back again to motivation. Figuring out like the thought of doing boring physiotherapy reps to heal are, seems theoretically really boring. Oftentimes, if it's the motivation that's going to, if we're in intense pain and we need to do something that's going to help alleviate the pain, that can be the motivation to get it done. But I do commiserate with the fact that, I don't know about everybody else, but I feel like people with ADHD tend to injure themselves from overexercise and pushing ourselves just in general. And I don't necessarily have a solution to that other than to be kinder to yourself and, address it with a physiotherapist. I feel like, that's the other thing. It's, I think, to go and bring that up and say, look, I'm somebody who has a tendency to get really bored with this, especially if I'm not seeing results immediately. So, what would you suggest? How can I gamify this for me to actually see some results? They would probably have some great advice. I'm done.
I love that. Yeah, I've done that before. I've gone and advocated for myself in different areas. I've said, yeah, if it's boring and repetitive and redundant, I'm not going to do it. So let's figure out a way how to make this more fun and interesting because, even if that's just like changing things up, maybe doing a little bit different exercises, things like that, really helps too. Does that answer your question, Andrea? Or give you some thoughts on it?
Yeah. I don't know that it's a solution. I don't know that there is a solution. But and the truth is that I've had a bunch of surgeries and I've had to do physical therapy post-surgery a number of times. And I've always done it well enough and long enough that I recovered. But this back thing has been a real struggle for me because it's flared up time and again. And I've never really managed to build up my stomach, my core muscles the way that to really help me be better. So I don't know. I don't even know why I brought it up, but it's a struggle, and I'm sure I'll do the exercises with the physiotherapist. I'm good at that. I'm good at following directions. But it's when I try to do it myself, I struggle a lot. Anyway, thank you.
You are so welcome. Accountability partner. That's what I would suggest. If you do it when someone else tells you to do it, then maybe, I don't know, maybe a suggestion would be to get a accountability partner where they tell you to do it. Or I know Brett has that like really cool, oh, he's not in here. He has that cool like it's like physical therapy, but it tells you what to do. It's all like audio through Alexa. So if you have an Alexa, that could be a cool option too. Oh, did we lose our next question?
That might make it worth getting an Alexa all on its own.
Yeah, no, I was like, this is genius for the ADHD space because, like if I have to do an exercise or something on my own, I'm going to have my routines down now. But in the beginning, it was such a struggle. And maybe, it's that audio motivation of hearing it and learning it that will help.
Great suggestion. Let me investigate that.
Yes, go look up Brett Adler. He is, you know who he is, right? He has the dog Lucy, and he is, gosh, I can't remember the name of his company. Let me look real fast. But that is exactly what they do. They do audio, exercise, like physical therapy. What is his
That's right.
company's
I was
name?
reading his bio the other day. Yeah, super interesting. So yeah,
Yeah, he's
we'll
super fascinating.
Would
totally.
somebody DM me his name?
I was going to
Yes,
say, Val,
I'm in the
voice chat.
car, and if I try to.
Yes, I will message you his information.
awesome.
Got you.
Hi. So, okay, is it Dania? Is that how you say your name?
It's Dana. Thank you.
Oh, man. Oh, you have it spelled there too. Dang it. Okay, I should have checked first. Hi, Dana. How are you?
I'm good. I really appreciate this conversation. Like, I just also, Carolina, what you were saying really resonates with me. I was just also like formally diagnosed, and partly because my two daughters as well, have some neuro divergent stuff that we were trying to sort out, and suddenly I was like, oh hey, that also sounds like me. And I thought it was hilarious because when my doctor lady talked to me about the ADHD diagnosis about a month ago, well, 2 months ago now, one of her really helpful tips was to give me a list of like 10 books to read, which I thought was hilarious given that, as ADHD folks, we are really, really good at sitting still and focusing on one task. So that, and it was funny because I borrowed one of them from the library, and someone had written like tons and tons of notes in the margins for like the first 30 pages and then wandered off. And I was like, yep, there it is. ADHD in a nutshell. So I just wanted to thank you guys for this conversation today. I'm trying to figure out some support systems and healthy eating and all these same things that you guys are talking about, which is, I don't do diets at all because I'm not good at that. I'm a foodie. Also, I love food and I want it when I want it. And it's really, I'm trying to figure out some dietary stuff in my life that's actually causing me harm, like food is hurting me. So I'm working on sort of not thinking of it as a deprivation, but more like I need to avoid this thing for my health. And that's going okay. But I really appreciate the conversation. I'm done speaking.
Hi, Dana. Yeah, that's a
I
great experience or a great example of the difference between deprivation and self-care. And so that's another thing I talk about a lot. If you follow me, or if you know, in my book with my clients, we talk about the difference between self-care and self-control, and how, like, yeah, you can, you know, if you have a an allergy to peanuts, it's not a problem not eating peanut butter because it's a life or death situation. But again, you know, if this is a matter of like, well, I read a book that told me I would lose weight if I ate like a caveman, then that is self-control. And chances are it's your body's not going to go along with it for much, you know, it will in the initial, it will initially, it always does, but eventually it rebels against the desire for self-control. So, but I really empathize with the experience when you're first diagnosed. Me talking like I'm this, you know, I was diagnosed all of last year, but you know, we all know that a year in the life of a person with ADHD is like a decade for somebody else in terms of how much we learn and research. But it is such a dizzying experience to go through, and think about, you know, how this is applying to so many seemingly random issues and experiences in your life. So it's quite a roller coaster. So strap yourself in. I've done.
I just want to give a shout out to my fellow Oregon girl,
Woo woo!
Dana. Woo woo! I grew up in Portland and I am now in Central Oregon, but every time I see someone from Oregon, I'm like, what?
Well, I'm
So,
an
yay!
imposter because I've only lived here a couple years, and it doesn't feel like that long because of COVID. So I still feel like it's a very new city to me. But I'm now an Oregonian, so it's very exciting.
Oh, girl, you're gonna love it. Next time I'm in Portland, I will hit you up because there's so many cool things to see now that you guys are open, right? Sorry, I'm taking this conversation. I will take this conversation offline.
No
But I
worries.
think you guys
Thank
are
you so
friendly.
much.
Yes, absolutely. Love it, love it, love it. So, Katie, thank you so much. What a great conversation. I know that for me, like, there was a lot of ideas and thoughts sparked, a lot of, great questions from you guys. It's been amazing. And I would love to know if anyone does want to work with you, if they have, maybe they're hearing what you're saying and they're feeling it and they're like, yeah, I want more information. I want to get involved with whatever you have going on. How is the best way to get a hold of you? Instagram, Facebook, how can they get a hold of you and how can they work with you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram as Women in ADHD podcast, or I think that's the one that you can get to through Clubhouse, or my coaching Instagram is katywebber.adhd. And you can always go to womenandadhd.com, which is a little easier to remember. And that's how you can book a initial consult to work with me one-on-one. I also have an online community with about 200 and some odd women in it. I think there's like 200, almost 250 of us that are, you know, a nice online community that is away from Facebook, where that's sort of where I spend most of my time. If you want to, for messaging, and that's a place where it's generally just, you know, a place where we hang out and talk about our ADHD and what it looks like and ask questions and pontificate. And we have body doubling sessions for co-working and accountability, and we have online Zooms and all of that. So if you're just sort of interested in dipping your toe in, that's the best way to find me. And you can join that through womenandadhd.com as well.
Awesome. And if you have one more thought, I'm curious to know if you have one more thought to anyone out there who is just starting this journey or just diving into their holistic wellness health, what would that be?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like find your people is the most important thing. And I think something that I hear the most from the listeners of the podcast, which is like, we have felt for so long that there is something wrong with us. And I think it is just the best thing we can do for managing ADHD and understanding who we are and building up our self-esteem and changing that inner narrative is finding other people with ADHD, joining groups, joining communities, and feeling connections like you do in these rooms, like on Clubhouse, where you can start to connect the dots and understand that this is, that you are not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You have ADHD, and it's actually can be quite a wonderful thing.
Yes, I love that message. You are not broken. I say that a lot. You're not broken. We are not broken. Our brain is just different. So thank you so much for that. That's a great way to kick this off. Thank you so much for spending time with us today, Katy. It's been great to have this conversation with you. And I'm just so grateful that you took the time to pour into us today on ADHD Rise. We are very, very grateful for you. So thank you.
Yes, we are. Thank you so
Thanks for
much for
having me.
being here. Yes, we've loved having you. All right, everyone. When I rise, you rise, and
We rise
we rise
together.
together. I was waiting.
We
We're
love
going to
you
get it right.
guys. This has been KATY WEBBER, and this is Val NIchols and Summer Christiansen hosting this amazing event. We will see you again tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. We will be back in the saddle again. I didn't get to sing enough, so I had to sing. I love you guys. Take this
Bye,
amazing
everyone.
energy away with you. We love you. Bye.